Hello, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. I'm here today with Matt, the unbearable 73. And we would have more people, but we had some people get sick. Some people had other things that got pulled on them at the last second, and other people just had, you know, stuff they had to do. So, other responsibilities, I should say. So, clearly, the only people here are the unresponsible ones. So,
Yes, we're free of all responsibilities, have no lives, all this other stuff.
well, I have too much in my life, but yes, that's a different story. Matt, what you got going on so we can chill?
Uh, so later tonight, well, on Thursday, I should say, you can find me on Roman of the Empire's sort of channel live stream. I have my Friday Fandemonia live stream. I do at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. At the time of this recording, I have up I finally was able to stomach watching Wheel of Prime episode 8 one more time, so I can do my review of it.
Never
Um,
again.
yes,
I'm doing that
um,
live stream every time. I'm not doing that for another
yeah,
video.
yeah. Um, I have I reviewed the novel Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which people seem to like a while back, about 2 weeks ago, and I just posted my thoughts. Not so much a review, my thoughts on Monarch Legacy of Monsters episode 1 and why I think they're doing the same mistake that they did in the MonsterVerse movies, which are good but could have been great. And my clickbait video, which should be out next day or two, is why Boruto sucks.
Wait, people watch Boruto? What?
Well, uh, it's not in the woke versus bad topic, so I won't go into it. But
Yeah,
there's a whole
it's just
and the
bad.
one saving grace. Yeah, it's bad for reasons that people don't want to accept. But you know,
I mean, that sounds like every fandom ever. Maybe we need to make another video and call it the dishonest fandom.
well, I would say in general the reason Boruto sucks is because the entire and this is in part why the Disney trilogy sucks too. Okay, not because
I'm assuming you're
the
referring to Star Wars.
yes,
Okay,
well
you
there
said
can't be
Disney.
many
That's
other
Star
Disney
Wars.
trilogies. Um,
Well,
when your
might be.
sequel product shits all over the reason, like the conclusion and completion of message of the previous product, it's going to suck inherently. Well, that's not
Very
beyond the
true.
point of woke versus bad. So it's you know,
So, well, that's what he's got going on. I have another video coming out hopefully soon. I shipped it off to someone to edit. Maybe they'll edit it, maybe they won't. If they don't, it should be up by Sunday at the worst case scenario. That's the idea. I have to wait to hear back from them first to see if they're actually going to work on it because they're like, I'll take a look at it. They only got halfway through it and they had other things to do. So we'll see. If it happens, and I'll be happy about it. If it doesn't happen, I'll still be happy because I'll have a video out. But yeah, so hopefully by Sunday, you should have another video, ideally. Depending how long this one, it might be up tonight, it might be up tomorrow. Who knows? It takes
yeah.
my computer so long to process stuff, especially that long, usually. But yeah, not a whole lot. So we'll go jump into this, I suppose. Um, so the topic today: woke versus bad. What is the difference? Now, most people have their own definition of woke or um, bad, I guess. People typically do like more. I mean, bad is very subjective because of certain aspects, but it's also could be objective in something directly. So I don't know. I've found several different definitions for woke, and I'm not really satisfied with any of them. So, do you have one that you use, Matt,
So
and see if it's the same as
okay,
mine?
let's put this in. So the original meaning of woke was from
To be woken up from
yes,
sleep.
yeah. Well, in terms of culture, it meant it was a reaction to overly overly idealistic, say like those 1950s, like Leave It to Beaver and all that, like woken up in the sense that reality is a little not quite as perfect as some of those sitcoms and books will portray it. Right. That was the original concept of woke. Right. Then the Marxists got a hold of it. Okay. And I don't mean the definition because they also claim it means the original thing. The whole like in the 1950s, I forgot the guy's name. He was a Marxist. He realized in the West that um, the economic argument didn't work because it was too easy for people to go from becoming poor to rich, like in one generation or whatever. So they had to come up with a new
What are
way
you
to
talking
divide the
about? It's
people.
impossible to gain wealth in America.
Yeah, he realized they had to come up with a new way to divide the people, and he came up with what's called critical theory. Okay, and the premise of critical theory was you're essentially going to define something as bad. That's a simple way to put it. So fast forward 50 years later, right? All these leftists and their thoughts are around the concept of the culture is bad, and it's white culture, and so woke, what we call woke, is a extreme leftist ideology that, and people need to understand this. When the Marxists use these arguments, they're not saying what they're saying is the replacement for white culture, right? They want to break that down and then impose Marxism, which is not woke, what we call woke. It's not this intersectional critical theory stuff. That's not Marxism, okay? That's what the tool the Marxists want to use to break down the dominant society, okay? So what we call woke is the effort by the Marxists to break down the dominant culture, which is admittedly largely European centric, but with some elements from other places. The West, as we will call it, right? With classical liberalism, free speech, right to self defense, right to taxation with representation, all the sort of things we think of in the West. Anti slavery, all those sort of things. And it's evolved over time and added a few new things and all that, which is fine. But that's the opposite of what Marxism is. Marxism is basically the control of a sort of a rigid control type of thing.
The
And
means of production, comrade.
yeah, well, and they're using this intersectional critical theory concept to subvert and deconstruct, right? Um, the European Western culture, right? And a very important to understand is subversion and deconstruction themselves are not bad. It's what they're using those tools for, which is bad.
Or
And
how
that's,
you're using them.
well, yeah. I mean, it,
What you're using for and how you use them are not the
it's
same
how you
thing.
use the gun and who you pointed at, right? You know,
Well, I mean, you can use subversion like in movies or something or books
yeah.
in a very well done way, and it's not bad. But
Oh yeah.
if you use it as like I'm gonna wipe this out because I want to shock you and awe you, then you're using it poorly, and it's just
The
bad done.
best example, to get back on fandom topics, the best example of subversion I could think
Star
of
Wars.
in a
What?
movie, it's The Conjuring. Okay, it
Oh,
was 6 years ago it came out. There was a trend in horror movies. I'm a big horror fan, so that's why I can talk about this. There was a trend in horror movies for 10 years to replace actual things that scare you with jump scares. You get kind of what I'm referencing. So
yeah. I
instead
never
of
watched it, but I know what you're talking. I know
instead
what you
of
mean.
building towards a terror moment or a horror moment, and then there's nothing wrong with having an occasional jump scare, like if a T-Rex pops out of nowhere or whatever. Fine, but
A T
every
Rex.
like in Jurassic Park, like when
Oh,
the dinosaur pops out of
there
nowhere,
was the Conjuring, and also the T Rex
you
pops
know,
out. I'm like, that's a
jump
strange. That's
scares
a super.
themselves are not wrong. But what
Yeah.
happened in horror movies was everything became jump scares, right?
Everything's an abusive jump scare
Yeah. So in
mechanic.
The Conjuring, and I don't whether you like the movie or not, just go back and watch from a critical point of view. Every point where they thought you were going to have a jump scare, they subverted your expectations. Like there's the best scene where she's in the crawl space or whatever, and she has you might have seen it in a trailer for it. She's in a crawl space, and the demonic thing is near her somewhere, and she has a lighter. She's turning the lighter on and off to try to see what's there. And in your head, you're thinking she's gonna flick it back on, and the monster's gonna be right friggin' next to her, right? Because that's what the expectation is, right? But they never do that. She leaves, and then they show the monster, like as if we're just there in the dark staring at her, you know. So they subvert your expectation for a jump scare, but replace it with an actual horror moment where the predator's after you in the dark and you don't know about it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It,
So
it's the use of the anticipation of the jump scare
yeah,
to build a mechanic that is
that's
actually
That's
scary.
a
Yeah.
great example of the
It's
proper
good
use of
subversion.
subversion. Yeah.
Yeah.
What the
Now we're
woke.
gonna trash all your favorite characters and
Yeah.
throw it out the window. Surprise!
Yep. Yeah, the bait and switch, which keeps happening in a lot of stuff, where your male hero is coming in and he's his show, and it turns out his female companion is the one who actually saves the day. It makes the male hero looks incompetent. You know, that's being used by the Marxists who subvert your culture type of stuff. You know, so that's
Well,
woke.
in that particular situation, you've got people who are trying to make the culture look down upon those characters, like the heroes that are men, because if the culture moves away from male heroes and
Well,
to female heroes, well, then you're gonna emasculate most of the men
no,
in the eyesight.
you're not. To quote Kakashi from
Oh
Naruto,
no.
you're not going underneath the underneath with that one. They're
Well,
not trying to
trying to.
replace male heroes with female heroes. They're trying to tell you that the concept of what you think of as a hero is fundamentally wrong.
That's also possible. I mean,
Yeah.
after seeing Captain Marvel, that's definitely not what I think a hero is.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No, what I mean it's very subtle, like because they're saying that you're stupid for ever thinking the Doctor was this great heroic character. That's what they're doing with these modern shows. You know,
yeah. Let's not talk about Doctor Who. I've already got
no,
a
but
headache
point
just
that's the
seeing
point I'm
the
getting at.
movie.
They're trying to subvert your entire legendarium, your entire moral epic
See,
construct.
I don't see that as subversion as much as I see that as taking over. It's a hostile takeover.
No, but that's the thing is they don't want see the people who actually believe in this intersectional stuff. There's a small group who want to replace it with that, but the Marxists are using them because they just want to wipe the whole slate clean and put Marxism in.
Yeah. I mean, I see it like if
Or
you're
here's the best way to
changing
think of it is China is a Marxist country, right? Yeah, in China, you can go and read Lord of the Rings. They actually praise Lord of the Rings in China and whatever. So long as whatever it is subverted to Marxism, they're fine with it, you know?
yeah.
But the people who promote this intersectional stuff in China, they will be suppressed because China doesn't want that. They don't want you to deconstruct anything. Once the state approves it, you're supposed to just consume it or not consume it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like people in China. I mean, I'm not saying it's a great place to live, but you don't have to read the Lord of the Rings in China. You could choose not to read it. What you
I
can't
think
do,
that's the reason they're still Marxist, honestly.
yeah,
But
but what you can't do is tell the state they're wrong for promoting it, which is what an intersectional person would do, right? You know,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
they wouldn't because they die, but yes.
Well, yeah, that's the point. That's what the Marxists are trying to use intersectional stuff and critical theory for is to destroy the system, so then they can say, "Look, Marxism
Which
is
is
better. Let's put
ironic.
Marxism in."
Which is ironic because if you look at Marxist countries or countries that have been Marxist in the past or like heavily socialistic or whatever, like Russia, China, North Korea, like the main ones you think of that you would grant is like, yeah, these guys have those kind of government policies and those tendencies. You look at them, you're like, they're not promoting emasculated males. They're not promoting
Nope.
unfeminine females. Every instance of those countries, they're always promoting a masculine male. Like China's like, look at our masculine
Yep.
military, and they do all the suits and
Yep.
the walking in unistep, and we're like looking at America, and they're like, join the army, you can become trans. And it's like this weirdest thing where I'm like, how did we fall so far where our military looks offensive to even join? Like, I don't get it. But
But
it is whatever.
that's what woke is. It's yes, there's this woke sort of leftist cultural stuff. Like some of them actually believe this sort of transgenderism crap or whatever. Um, but not the people who are legitimately transgender, which are adults who make a decision for themselves, right? Okay.
That's on them.
Yeah, but the actual people funding this are Marxists and corporations who align with Marxists who want to wipe out the system we have to put that Marxist system in place. And they, as soon as it's in place, right? Look at every place that socialists and Marxists are a type of socialist. So I'm just going to keep saying socialist because it's easier. Um,
BlackRock. What?
yeah. Yeah. Every time socialists take over, they purge people. and the first people they purge are their street soldiers who got them into power. Every time it's happened, they're the first people they purge. Then they purge people who are in a position to teach something else, like teachers, local politicians. The pattern's the same every time they take
Priests.
over. You know, yeah,
Yeah,
so
but I
that's
mean,
kind of what wokeism is, and the politics behind it, at least from the way I view it,
I'm
right?
I'm not necessarily looking at it from the political perspective as much as the subconscious shoveling of it into someone's mind. If they go see a movie, are they getting ideologies crammed in their head, or are they getting entertainment? And that's kind of where this is like woke versus bad, because like I I I've been thinking for a long time that a lot of content is woke. Like it has the strong female character that's also lame and gay, and all that fun stuff. And it's just like, oh, that's woke. And then I'm starting to think like, well, maybe it's not woke. Maybe it's just bad. Like,
Well,
is there a difference between something that is pushing you to accept or agree with? Excuse me. Whoo, where did that come from? To accept or agree with their concepts. The Marvels being kind of a big thing where like if you don't like it, it's because you hate women. That's the shield they use so they can make profit, even though they're losing it like crazy.
well, I
Um,
would say they're saying you don't like it because something is wrong with the way you think, and you should change the way you think.
yeah,
That's a definition of what they're pushing on you.
but
Whereas,
that doesn't make the product like the Marvels necessarily woke. Is my point. Like they might be trying to use a medium, like for example, House of the Dragon. The directors and other people who've talked about it notoriously said things that would be considered woke or intersectional or whatever. And then people watched the show and they were like, none of that's in here. What are you talking about?
well,
Like,
there's some of it in there. The whole pregnancy thing with ripping the baby out, and you know
I don't know if
the
that's necessarily woke as much as just bad. But I
you know
mean,
plus the changes from the book. My biggest reason I don't like House of the Dragon is because I've read Martin stuff, right, and I
I'm
enjoy
so
his.
sorry.
Well, they skipped over number one. They skipped over all the stuff like that first season kept time skipping, right? I
I
wanted to
honestly
see.
lost interest in it really quickly.
Well, I wanted to see Daemon Targaryen in that war. Was it the war in the Stepstones? I wanted to see that war. I wanted to
There's a
see
war. I'm there.
all the political intrigue that led to Daemon becoming a threat to the High Towers. I want to see that, right? I didn't want to see. And now I know why they're skipping because they want to blow their budget on this gigantic war with dragons flying in the sky. I know why they want to do it, right? But I wasn't interested in skipping forward to that. And but it was woke from early on, like the whole thing with the women. Do you remember how the Great Council?
What are they called? Women.
No, do you remember how they automatically discounted all women for the Iron Throne in Westeros? They right, but
Well,
because
wasn't that like law or a culture?
yeah, they
A
passed the
culture?
Great Council where they barred all women from possible seating because of what one of the Targaryen women did, as she was such a horrible ruler. Now, mind you, to be
Yeah.
honest, in the history of the Targaryens, there's only one good king. One, the guy who reigned for like 50 years. He's the only one of all of them who was a good king.
Well, it's also funny because if you think about it, they're always like, "You never let women be in charge." Then you like look at the history past of what all these women have done. And you're like, "Oh my gosh, we're banning them all." Like it's like, yeah, because they all have horrible histories. What do you expect?
Yeah. But
It's a
anyway,
valid reason to ban them.
but it wasn't the woke stuff that turned me off of House of Dragons, right? Because I always had the viewpoint that you can have, like for example, uh, I mean, you're a Doctor Who fan, right? So
I liked David Tennant's rendition. Matt
okay,
Smith was
so
okay, but
so
I
you're not
I
a
really
longtime fan,
like.
you're a modern fan, okay? So
Yeah, I
Doctor Who
didn't
has
I didn't know
always
about it until
had
14
left
or
leaning
9.
stuff because Britain is compared to the U.S. Britain is a left leaning culture, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
I know that it's Brit. I'm familiar with like British stuff. Like I'm big into Monty
yeah.
Python,
So
Blackadder, and all that type of
when
stuff.
when the show came back under RTD, Eccleston and then Tennant and Matt Smith and all that, Captain Jack came around. He was
Hmm.
clearly a very out and out bisexual character,
Yeah.
but it wasn't to the point of like saying
Even
that
gay.
when RTD and what's his face did the show, they would never come at you and saying, "Well, because you're not bisexual, something is wrong with you." You know what I mean? Whereas uh, they just presented this character, and they didn't. They remembered it was a children's show, so they didn't go over the top with the sexuality, right? Um, and they let you make your own decision. You know,
Yeah.
that was fine. Then all of a sudden we get to Chibnall and Dr. Karen. So and now
Dr. Karen.
RTD coming back and he's gone full cult left wing cult and all.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched the Children Who Need Special or the recent or the 16th anniversary
I did
special.
not, because I heard about it before I even thought about
Yeah.
it.
Well, I am not going to watch the succeeding specials because of what they did in this one. But I said I have to be objective and give it one shot. You know what I mean? I have to give it one shot. And
Well, from what I understand, until the Timeless Children is removed or retconned, the rest of Doctor Who is just lost.
if if RTD had come in and said basically, I'm just going to continue the storytelling classic Doctor Who, I could have mentally ignored the entire Timeless Children thing. You know what I'm saying? Like let someone retcon it 15 years from now when this stuff is over. You know what I'm saying?
Hopefully, it
Like,
doesn't take that long, but yes.
yeah. I mean, as a comic book fan, like for example, Darkseid's one of the great villains in comic books, right? If you're a longtime DC fan, he had a couple of horrible like defeats over the years, which were retconned 15 years later. Literally, Morris had said, "No, this can't stand. I am retconning this crap out of existence." And he did it, and fans were fine with that. It took 15 years to fix it, but they did it. I'm okay if they can't get rid of the Timeless Children.
Did you just hear about what they did with Gwenpool?
Um, I haven't followed that one.
Oh no. Okay, so I didn't even think about it to bring it up, and I'd have to dig through Twitter for this, but essentially they made Gwenpool, I think, bisexual. They've got trans flags all over it.
Oh, okay. So I heard something about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like they gave her the butch look as much as they could, and people are like saying she's drawn like a furry. Like
Well, see, the thing is,
it's all over the place.
I don't have to worry about that because Gwen Stacy died 30 years ago. So
Yeah, but it's Gwenpool, so it's Deadpool and Gwen Stacy mixed.
which to me is an alternate character.
It's not
So
Spider-Gwen. It's not Spider-Gwen. Gwenpool has been around, I think, for a while.
well, they came out of the Ultimate Universe. So in my head, they're alternate continuity characters. The same way Miles Morales. People say Miles Morales is not. No, Miles Morales is Ultimate Spider-Man too. I will say it. He is not. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. He is the main Spider-Man. An alternate Miles Morales is an alternate reality Spider-Man. No matter if they brought him into the main reality, I will not fight the battleground on their terms by saying he's another Spider. I won't do that.
Yeah.
Same thing with Gwenpool and Spider Gwen. They're alternate reality characters in comic books. I'm used to that.
I don't like alternate realities. They honestly annoy the snot out of me.
I'm okay in comic book sense. I'm okay because we're used to Elseworlds and what ifs and whatever. As long as your mainstream comic continuity is intact, you can have these what ifs and Elseworlds and whatnots. I'm okay with that. Because to me, that's the place you explore this stuff where you put your like if someone like if these like what they did, what Kelly Sue Crapconic did to every character he's ever written, basically. Where you do that in What If, in an alternate reality comic book series or whatever. That's where you explore hard versions of Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel and all that. Not in the mainstream comic, which has a history and a fandom, or had a fandom, which doesn't exist anymore because we all said screw Marvel and DC.
Oh, I found it. This is gonna hurt. Let me pull this out since flashbang. I was not prepared for this because I remember seeing it like last night or something. I think it was last night. It hurt because like I love Deadpool character, like the actual Deadpool character. I love Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool.
Peak Deadpool was Fabian Yates's Cable and Deadpool comic book from like the 2000s. If you go back and find that,
the sad part is I never really got the chance to be into to really be into comics because I didn't. My dad grew up on DC more than Marvel, but he likes Marvel and DC. He loves them. He's what we call the yes man. He'll say yes to like any movie that comes out that he goes to see. He's like, I like it, I like it, I like it, and
He's
I
an
constantly
okayist.
tell him he's an okayist. But I'm always sitting there going like, Dad, doesn't matter if you liked it or not. That does not make it objectively good. It can be absolutely trash,
Yep.
and you can still like it. That's fine. But don't sit there and say it was actually well made because like there's a lot of things that aren't well made, and he doesn't like when I say that. So we stopped going to see movies together because he,
Yeah.
he asks me after every single movie, and he knows it's gonna start a fight. He's like, "So what did you think?" I'm like, "You know what I think." You know, because I have standards and I base my enjoyment off of the objectivity of how it's made. Like, is it well made? And I don't want to say this is really good when it's really not, because there's too much that just bothers me at, like, to no end, about like why did they use the shaky cam instead of just a steady cam? Why did they use a still cam instead of a moving cam? Like, why are they doing this thing? Why are they doing that thing? Why is the actor behaving this way? Why is the actor not acting like they're acting? Like,
Well, I mean, I could enjoy
a lot
something
of
and still
things.
know it's bad. You know.
Well, like, I mean, I love Monty Python, and by all intents and purposes, they're bad movies in terms of like if they were trying to make it like an actual King Arthur movie, it's objectively a bad film. But they're making it in comedy, and comedy's a bit of a different beast. But I would never consider them to be like crazy amazing made. Like they're not billion-dollar movies or anything. But they're funny, they're highly entertaining, and I love them to death. But they're not by any means great in terms of cinematography and that kind of stuff. Like you could tell it's a lot of cut shots. There's a lot of really like
Well,
cheesy
that's
stuff. It's
the
also
first
older.
45 years of Doctor Who. They're low
Yeah.
budget TV shows, but they're very enjoyable because they're
Yeah. Which
heartfelt.
is
They're
which is fine. And typically nowadays I'd consider those probably considered masterpieces
oh
with
yeah,
what they're made
yeah.
out of and what all that type of stuff. But when I see modern stuff that like the CGI is atrocious, and you're like, well, why is the CGI atrocious? They have the budget, they use the budget. Why is it atrocious? Why is Wheel of Time have $87 million for a season or something? And or if, I think it might even be higher than that. It was like 13, 14 million per episode. And that's the best they could come up with? Why? How? What did you spend it on? You had like 15 actors in this entire episode. It's almost an hour long, and you had 15 people in this entire episode. And you're telling me with those really poorly made sets, it was 13 to 14, if not $15 million?
Well, that's what it costs. Like for example, like in the NFL, even guys who are second stringers make $1 million a year now. You know, it that's just what it costs. Like third string CGI guys still cost a ridiculous amount of money. You know.
But I'm talking like, look at it compared to Game of Thrones, who had a $10 million budget, I think was the proper budget. I could be wrong, but that's what I remember. With a $10 million budget, they had full scale battles with hundreds, if not thousands, of
Well,
extras, armored with all of that being pretty well made armor.
Well,
And then,
yeah, but a lot of that see thing is you gotta understand how they saved costs on Game of Thrones. They tended to not have a lot of big battles. They had like one or two per season, and all that armor and stuff. People don't realize there's an industry in Hollywood, and now New Zealand has it too, where there are just
thank
warehouses
you for
full
the
of stuff.
rings.
Well, there are just warehouses full of stuff, like you can like thousands of warehouses full of like armor and weapons
Props, yeah.
and yeah, and they just reuse them. It's like the most famous story I have for that is the movie Excalibur. You remember the movie Excalibur?
Not off the top of my
You've
head,
never
no.
seen Excalibur?
I've heard about it, but I've never watched it,
Okay,
no.
it's a classic fantasy movie. It's an Arthurian movie.
I've heard about it, like it's
Yeah.
good.
So
That's
the
what I
guy who
heard.
made Excalibur way back in early 70s was trying to make a Lord of the Rings movie. He was the first guy trying to do it, right? And he made he
Like
made
live action, you mean?
live
Or
action, yes, live
okay, I was
action.
gonna say cartoon's been
Yeah.
around for a while.
And
So
had he done it, it probably would have been a good movie. But he made all the armor and props and he made up sets, but the studios backed out of the project, so they just put all that stuff in those warehouses. So years later, when he became big for another movie, they said, "Oh, well, you can make your dream movie," but they lost the Lord of the Rings rights. he said, "I'm going to make Excalibur," and he reused all the stuff he made for Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
and that's why it looks so good because they put he had that previous stuff that they just pulled out of the warehouse, so all the money for production went into adding stuff on top of that. But that's the
Yeah.
most famous story
Well,
for that.
and I get that that's happening, and I know that Amazon was building its new studios and all that jazz. But my point was more like one episode they have a ton of people, another episode they have a whole lot less people. Every battle looks pathetic. And I'm like, if you're gonna make it look that bad, don't even do the series. Like
Because they're not spending money on the right people. There's
they're not
like
spending money rightly at all. Like it's not
yeah
budgeted properly. It's not going to the right people. You're not getting the right casting people. You're not casting the right people, in my opinion. But that's a
yeah
different story. But like they put the wrong people in charge. Like Jennifer Salke needs to get out. Like they need to can her super fast and put in things that are going to be properly made and things that people want to actually see. Like that's what we need. But Jennifer Salke is like the Kathleen Kennedy at this point. Like she can do
yeah
no wrong. But there's all different stuff. It's like, what did you do with this stuff? Where did this go? What happened? A whole bunch of stuff. But anyway, let's look at this thingy.
yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this or not, but I can't really zoom in because it's already zoomed in because it's tall. But
I can already tell you the art is atrocious.
that is true. But I mean, I'm a manga fan. I prefer anime and manga art more over American comics, honestly. But it says Gwenpool and everything coming up aces. Now keep in mind, all the trees have rainbow Christmas tree kind of lights on them. So,
Oh, this
little
is very
subliminal.
this is obviously agenda driven, and
Oh yeah.
this style of art is not in and of itself bad per se. This implementation of it is.
I mean, I would say some of the art is pretty bad. And like some things in this are bad, but she's running through going, "Hey, you true believers, it's your girl Gwenpool with a new purpose in life. Purpose in life." And she's at
Um,
Empire State University.
mm.
I recently had a major epiphany. Keep in mind, she's also talking fourth wall. I'm asexual and aromantic. I always wanted to say aromatic, but it's just funny. So I decided to be the ace icon of the Marvel universe. And look at me, I'm in a Pride comic. And I'm like, the fact that you're in a Pride comic tells me everything that's wrong with this to begin with,
Which,
because
by the way, um,
there's the
so
end. There's the
asexuality is a
curtain.
legitimate medical condition, and people like comics like this make a mockery of it.
Yeah, it's like not being attracted to anybody is fine.
No, no, no.
But
That's not asexuality. Asexuality medically is when your sex drive just doesn't work.
I
Like
thought
you
asexuality was something that self reproduced with itself,
no, 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 no.
or was
There's a
attracted.
medical people who are asexual, like when you interact with someone, anyone, you don't feel like
So yeah,
I
you're
don't
not
know.
attracted. You don't get the attraction. You don't get the hormones. You don't get all that stuff.
No, you can see that they're attractive, but your body doesn't respond biologically.
But from what I understand of attraction, and I only know this because I have a kid, but from what I understand from attraction is a feel. Like you don't look at somebody and say they're attractive if you don't feel any hormonal reaction to them.
Okay, let me put it another way. Your brain says that's attractive. Your body doesn't respond.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
a that's medical
but
asexuality, and
how else do you call how do you call somebody attractive and your body not
because
respond?
your brain is key to certain things genetically. Okay, it's just it's pure biology. It's the same reason an infant won't smile until it identifies a female as its mother. That's biological fact. Okay, there's certain triggers in your neurological structure for your brain who you're going to find attractive, right? And
Mm.
certain phenotypes like that they've noticed even across cultures, like certain that tend to lead towards reproductive success, right? So hip to breast ratios and things like that in women, um,
Proportions.
yeah, and your brain triggers that and says attractive, 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 and your hormones fire off and make your body go, right? Medically speaking, asexuality is when the trigger doesn't get a response. And there's all sorts of treatments for it. Sometimes it's hormonal, like you need more testosterone if you're a guy. Sometimes you have a tumor on certain parts of your pituitary gland causing it. Sometimes, you know, um, you have uh, deep-seated psychological trauma that prevents it from, because that's neurological misfire that messes up your neurochemistry. Like it's a really kind of deep thing. Like the way my interests work is when I find something, I'll deep dive into it for a few months or a year. So I read about asexuality. I want to say in my 20s. I read an article about it in like Time or something like that, and so then I went and got a bunch of books and read. And it's an area of medical study when your reproductive biology doesn't trigger properly, right? So those people legitimately struggle, and it's not like you could be perfectly fine, and then all of a sudden you're 34 years old, you're married for 10 years, and you become asexual, and you don't know why, you know. Um, so you have to go to the doctor, and in the past, doctors will be like, "Well, you're just getting older, no more hormones." But and so they just ignore it. Well, they start studying it like in the 60s and 70s and later, and say, "No, the legitimate medical causes of this asexuality or psychiatric causes, which is a type of medical thing." Um, so we need to help these people, you know. So the people who struggle with asexuality see the garbage like this particular comic is doing. You can't choose to be asexual. You can't.
I was about to
Okay.
mention, it was like she's like, I'm asexual. It's like, well, you can't choose to. You weren't before. Now you are. That like you don't choose
Yeah.
to be.
You
And
can't.
she's not stating it as in like, hey, I went to the doctors and I found out that I don't have physical attraction to anybody anymore, and I just don't have the ability to do it. Therefore, I'm asexual.
Yeah.
She's not saying it. She's like, I'm choosing to be asexual. And it's
It's the
like,
same thing with the trans people. There are people who legitimately struggle with gender dysphoria from when they're young, and that's a medical and psychiatric condition. And it's offensive to those people who have to deal with that when these people all of a sudden decide, I'm trans, I'm trans, I'm trans. That's
yeah,
offensive to people with legitimate problems. Just like I'm obviously I'm overweight, right? Okay, so I struggle with my weight. I used to weigh a lot more. We deal with it. These people who want to make fat culture are offensive to me. I don't want that. I'm not I'm struggling with a biological health problem, and these people
yeah.
want to turn it into a culture. They think they could just choose to be that way or whatever. And this is what this whole movement, and I think they do it on purpose, of course. But it's just when I see this comic, when I see that statement, when I see the art, this type of art being used in that way, right? It's offensive to me.
Well, and I mean, I feel like it's a bit more complicated than just the medical aspect. And I'm not saying that the medical aspect doesn't work that way, but I think it also moves into certain things because, like, you could say something's pretty without being attracted to it. Like, you can say, oh yeah, their proportions, the smoothness of their skin,
But that's
the way they
the
hold
point I'm getting
themselves.
at from the sexuality is that's true. What you're saying is, but when your brain says that's attractive and your body doesn't respond, that's the medical asexuality that these people legitimately struggle with. Okay, and
See, I just call that ED, but yeah,
well, women don't have erectile dysfunction, but
you'd
um,
be surprised. I
but
mean,
that
nowadays you can be a lady and have erectile dysfunction. So.
yeah, but when these morons have characters declaring I'm asexual, I don't know, but this is
Yeah,
all.
I mean, like literally every individual like scene or whatever they're called, cut. I'm not big into comics. I'd rather do mangas
Panel
and
panels.
panel. Thank you. Each panel, it's literally as gay gets,
Yeah.
with everything. There's gay rainbows. She's even got like stars coming off of her or whatever for whatever reason. They got the, the rainbow lights in the trees, and it doesn't look a thing like Christmas. You've got the banners on poles that are coming down that are the pride flag. You got the one on top of the building that's the pride flag. Then you
Mhm.
get to the next panel. You've got I'm assuming the pride LGBTQ plus infinity and beyond
And
flag.
so this is
You got
woke.
everybody going, hey, and then you
This
got
is
her throwing up a random color. I'm assuming it's supposed to be asexual and aromantic.
this is woke and bad.
I mean, is aromantic just like you're not romantic?
I that one I don't know.
Because if that's the case, I'm very much romantic because I'm not romantic at
You
all.
know,
Ask my wife. But
because these people make up words that don't mean anything, but try to make groups out of it.
oh, she's trying to say she's aerodynamic. Ah, that makes so much more
Ah,
sense.
yeah, yeah.
I think she's aromatic. Like she just lets off the smell and it smells disgusting. But take a shower. But like it this it's all this kind of stuff that just it's silly, but like I would consider this woke. But I would also consider it bad. But then it's like woke and bad overlap a lot, like a Venn diagram,
Well,
but they're not always the
that's it.
same thing.
If you ever went back and watched my Rings of Prime reviews, I
I
always
couldn't
separated.
watch mine.
I always separated the lore deviancy and like I would have a review video, but I wouldn't talk about the actual book lore in that. I do a
Yeah.
separate video saying how where the deviancy from the lore was, because I wanted to make the point that no matter how woke this show was or how much it deviated from the lore, it was so badly written on its own that it was bad. You know what I mean?
Well, that's because Galadriel is the reason Sauron came to power and was evil to begin with. Because
Well,
Morgoth wasn't a thing at
yeah,
all. It's just
yeah.
like, and they met on a raft in the middle of the ocean on the way to Valinor when they're from humans from the south. None of that makes any sense whatsoever. And there's a giant sea serpent, which I don't remember if there were giant sea serpents in the water or not, because I thought,
There
oh
are sea
no.
serpents in a particular part of the world, but that's besides the point. Okay.
I don't even think that was in that area though. Like I'm just
Well,
like,
that's all besides the point. Okay, see,
I don't know. It
like
just like oh, that's kind of weird, but
the lore is horrible, the woke is horrible, but they would do stuff like the Numenorian. Here's bad writing. The Numenorians sent like 3 ships to the mainland that carried 500 horses.
I commented on that one when I did mine
You
too.
know,
That was
but there was
great.
time and time again they would like every episode there would be this horrible writing just in their own plot. Let's pretend J.R. Tolkien never existed, right? Just pretend. And let's
I'd
pretend
rather
we were
not.
all woke. Let's pretend we were all woke. We love the woke stuff, right? Right?
We
This show
do.
would still be horrible.
Yeah, I feel like a paper bag that has poop in it that's on fire on someone's porch should probably be better quality than most things that are put
Now,
on TV these days.
it is theoretically possible to do like Barbie. Barbie is an example of something that was fairly woke, but reasonably well done. Okay, I'll give them credit for it. I didn't like it personally,
Well, they were
but
also kind of self-ironic and they didn't realize it.
well, I think the writers snuck a little bit of that in there to be a little balanced. But the fact is, Barbie is a
No,
fairly
like I
woke
mean,
movie.
like them pushing that women are always this, women are always that, like we're always getting the rough thing, and then they're like Ken's gonna go make this patriarchy thing and it's gonna be evil and horrible and we're gonna go fix everything because women know how to fix stuff and men just screw up, and then you're looking at like what men actually made it like really better and everything. Like I don't think they were expecting it to be as pro men as they made it, because they definitely weren't in favor of that, but
I
it just
I I,
happened to turn out
I
that way.
kind of agree, although I think some of the writers snuck some of that in. But the point is, Barbie was a fairly well made movie. Therefore, it's watchable. Not to me because I don't like
My wife
Barbie as a
watched it
toy.
and found it to be not that great, and I liked hearing about Ken Land.
Well, I was
It's
never
just
going to watch it because I never found Barbie as a toy interesting. That's I was never going to watch this movie. You know.
I had a lot of I spent a lot of time with my girl cousins, and all they really had was Barbies. So when I was really really young,
Well,
I
most of my female
played with my
relatives,
cousins, and that's what they had. So
like
I
most of
don't really
my
care about it. I prefer GI Joes.
even
Shocking.
my female relatives never played with Barbies when they were kids. Never. Like uh, they played with girl toys. They had dolls like my they had Cabbage Patch dolls and they had you know
Cabbage Patch.
but they were just never like in my area. They was never into Barbie, and you know.
Yeah, I mean it's fine. People are into things that they're not into things.
Yeah.
Who had a video? Oh, Tim Pool did a video the other day about this lady who was on TikTok just getting upset that men always complain about women's content and blah blah blah, and it's just like no they don't. They really don't. Um Men do care typically if you take the heroes they look up to, and whether it be Marvel or DC, and then eviscerate them and then replace them with the female copy
Yeah.
that is hoarse and horrible and just poorly written in every way possible. And then that's what you're supposed to thank them for that. I'm like, why? You could just write the guy correctly. And the funny part is that there's plenty of instances where guys even sometimes prefer the female characters. Red Sonja, Mara Jade. Like there's I mean, ironically they're both redheads, but it's like there's a pattern. But like there are instances where guys are like, I would rather see this because I want to see Black Widow in a hot bodysuit doing cool things.
But
I'd like to
see,
see Mara Jade in a black bodysuit or in whatever she wears because she's awesome in every way possible. Yeah, she's attractive, but she's just freaking awesome in every way possible. On top of that, and then just like Alita Battle Angel, she's pretty freaking cool. Like there's some cool characters that guys will actually go out and see, and then sometimes they're attractive, not in the sexual way, but attractive to a female to be like, I want to be like that, or that's somebody I look up to because they have this particular viewpoint, or they think they're a hero, or whatever. Like whatever their personal
and
reason
hey,
is, it works
I
out.
will admit, while I enjoy the attractive woman on screen, I can enjoy women who aren't as conventionally attractive. For example,
Yeah.
in Pierce Brosnan's James Bond films, Judi Dench played M, and she was great at the role. Uh, you can have female playing strong roles who are really good and enjoyable, and they don't have to be extremely attractive.
Yeah.
It helps,
It
but
does help.
you know,
I mean, well, the thing is humanity likes to see pretty things. Like we like shiny stuff. We like beautiful stuff. We like really
yeah,
pretty looking cars. We like pretty men and well, pretty women, handsome men, whatever. Like I mean, call them pretty men in
whatever.
general. But
People
like,
like seeing things they find attractive. That's genetic.
yes, they want to see things that they find attractive. So if you put things that they don't find attractive on the screen, they're less inclined to want to go participate in it. It's not like Planet of the Apes, where they're all apes, and it's like, well, people who go see Planet of the Apes aren't going like, man, I find them really attractive. No, they're just like, that sounds like an interesting plot. The story
Well,
itself is
the
holding up.
concept is attractive.
That too, yeah. But it's like
Well,
even,
for the original Planet of the Apes, so not for the garbage ones they've been making for the past 15 years.
but like there's something about it like men love Lord of the Rings typically, and there's a lot of women who do as well. But men overwhelmingly just love Lord of the
Hmm.
Rings. It's not really a power fantasy per se, but it's just a I could be this random nobody who could go on this journey like Frodo, and I could be that Dunedain freaking ranger that travels with Aragorn. I could be that random person in the background, but I could also do these amazing things to save the world, and I could put myself in that position and enjoy that story. Like it, but despite that, I mean, yeah, you got Miranda Otto, you got Liv Tyler, although those people like they good looking, whatever. But that's not why they went. People didn't go to see Lord of the Rings because of hot chicks. That's not what they went to go see. Did it
Yeah.
help that they were attractive looking? Sure. But that's not why people went. They went because, well, the music's fantastic. The story's amazing and has been beloved for very, very long time. Like, there's the good versus evil fight that everybody likes to have. It's one of the reasons I get really sick of like superheroes because it's always good versus evil. And it happens over. It's like a copy and paste, just with different characters, with a slightly different change of the story over and over. I'm just like, I want to hear anti-hero stories. Like those are what I like, but that's just me. Um, but in terms of like what people go see content for, is they go see it because it's good content.
Hmm.
They want to see a story they can relate to, characters they can relate to, characters that are going through trials and tribulations that they can relate to. Like, oh man, I mean, I'm running low on cash. Do I go rob the bank or do I get a job? Like,
Yeah.
then they see like something happens in the story, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I shouldn't rob a bank because I'm going to ruin my life and my kid's life and my wife's life, and I'm never going to be able to take care of my kids again because I'm going to be in the slammer. They're like, but I can step up, help somebody. Oh, that person that I helped was really rich, and they helped me get a job and get a position. They used my talents, and I climbed up the ladder. That's something people were like, that sounds like a dream. Like I'd
Yeah.
love that to happen to me. And then they enjoy those kind of content, and it's just like, that's cool, that's great, that's fan flipping tastic. So when you go make something, make it good according to what people are looking for. But if you're gonna dip your toes into something that's new to people, just make it seem attractive to those people, not in necessarily in the sexual format, but like attractive to them, and like they would want to see this because of something in that film makes them want to see it. What do they want to see? Well, everyone wants to see a good story. They don't want to see a bad story. And this is where you get to the bad stuff. It's like, well, is Star Wars the new trilogy woke, or is it just horribly done? I used to
It's
think it was woke, but I think I've changed my mind and went to more it's just poorly done. Like,
the whole
having
I
Ray
would
be
say
there wasn't the problem. Ray wasn't the problem. It
I
was
would
how they
say
wrote
no,
her to be the
I would
problem.
say the first movie wasn't woke at all. Okay, the second and third movies had a stronger and stronger woke elements, and they were exceptionally badly written.
Yes, which is par for the course for J.J. Abrams.
Well,
And
no,
then
JJ
Rian Johnson took over.
had nothing to do with the second and third movies. Okay,
Well, I mean, he was the third,
he was
technically.
forced to direct the third film, forced to do
True.
it. He was not his
Yeah.
script. It was not his concept for what the movie would have been. He Iger basically said to him, "You're going to come back and do this movie, or we're going to sue
Was it
you."
Iger or was it Chapek at the time?
Whoever it was, they're the same. To me, they're the same goon, so it doesn't matter. You know,
They are the hive mind.
they're like the board. They're like the Disney Borg. We are the Bobs. We will assimilate you. You know, it's like
They're not the kind of bobs we like.
yeah.
Hey,
But I mean, the story that some people don't know, J.J. Abrams made a Star Wars trilogy. He wrote the whole thing out, right? Planned the whole thing.
yeah, but his stupid mystery box is just annoying me to no end. So I
Well,
assume it's probably bad anyway.
regardless of that particular thing, um, but he told them, I can't film the second movie. Okay, I have a previous commitment, which I think might have been the Star Trek movie, but he had said I can do the
Just like
first one.
Star Wars.
I could do the third one. So Kathleen Kennedy said to him, "Oh, I got this young up and coming director, Rian Johnson, right? Hell, we can do." So they had meetings where Rian showed up at the end of Force Awakens. He was working with JJ. They did a couple months of planning and starting the pre-production for Last Jedi, right? And as soon as JJ left the set, literally, Kathleen Kennedy told Johnson, "Throw everything he did away. This is what we're going to do." Okay, and so when JJ found out what they did, he basically almost did to the point where you know that thing with the directors do where they put that fake name in the movie.
A pen name?
There's a name. It's I forgot the name. It's Smithy or something like that. There's a name where a director wants to disown a movie. He'll say, "Take my name off and then put this pen name on." And it's the same name every time they do it. Okay, I don't remember what it is, but it when it happens anyway. He almost told Disney, "Do that. I'm not coming back for the third movie. This second film was atrocious." He said it's offensive to my work. I'm not coming back. But
Which is, I mean, if it's offensive to that, you're really ballsy. Because that was I didn't like it because I found it plagiaristic of episode 4. I didn't like it for that reason.
Well, he made
along
Force
with some of the
Awakens a
characters.
sort of throwback to he wanted to be an homage to Episode 4 to get you
That
back
didn't work
into the
out.
Star Wars feeling, and then his story was going to go off in this new direction, like with the newer characters being mentored by the older characters with the second and third film. And I don't remember his exact conclusion. You could find his synopsis out there. So anyway, the Last Jedi as constructed, which was basically the deconstruction of Luke Skywalker, right? Which was not what
Mhm.
JJ wanted to do with that movie.
Well, he wanted the deconstruction of Han Solo, so there's that.
No, Han Solo, Harrison Ford required that if he come back for the films, they kill him off. That was his requirement.
But they could have done it better. They could have made him go out in a blaze of glory or something.
Uh,
He
Everything
didn't.
Han Solo did in that movie was approved by Harrison Ford. He had total control of that
That
character.
doesn't mean anything to me.
He had
Like,
total control of that character. So he literally wrote his own character in that movie.
that,
Okay,
yeah, but that well, that just means he doesn't love the character as much
he
as Mark
doesn't. He does.
was,
He never likes Han Solo as a
which
character.
which is why somebody else should have written it for him.
But then he wouldn't have done the movie.
Well, no, he's just like, hey, look, we're gonna have you back, but if you want us to kill you off, we'll kill you off, but we'll do it in a way that the fans will be
And
happy.
he
And
said,
then
"This
you'll
is
be
the way."
done.
He said, "No, you're going to do it my way. I won't appear in the movie."
I mean, honestly, he'd have been better off not in the movie then at that point.
I agree with you. I personally agree with you. But
Like
point,
they could
you can go back.
they
You
could have
can
done
go
like a
back
flashback
decades
and done
and
like
find Ford.
a body type
You
or a
can
body swap.
you can go back decades and find Ford saying he doesn't like Star Wars. He's not a big fan of the Star Wars movies. Doesn't like the Han Solo character. You know, he
Well,
did
I
it for a
mean,
paycheck.
you don't. Well, those are all valid reasons. Whatever, that's fine, and you don't have to like your work in that regard. But I think it's also kind of fair that when you're in that position and you're making your livelihood off of people who consume your content, you're slightly bound to do them justice to some
He's
extent.
not. He's a made man. He's a multiple million. He makes. He's
Why did he go do Indiana Jones? Was he trying to tank that one too? Like,
the same reason he died in that Indiana Jones film. His requirement. Kill me off.
Well, I thought he also had a requirement that they never make another Indiana Jones, but from what I understand, they're trying to do the Phoebe Waller-Bridge thing or something.
I think they offered enough money to him to have him to do one more after uh, Crystal Skull or whatever the stupid movie was called. Um, but he said, if you're
But
gonna,
then I'm saying, they did Crystal Skull, then they were doing this one, but then he's like, after this, I don't want any more Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones has to be done. And they're like,
well, he
sure,
can't.
sure, but
You come back for this one, he required that they kill him off. But
well,
Disney
I
still,
hadn't heard about killing him off as much as I had heard them like ending the franchise.
well, they didn't want to end the franchise, so
Well,
they wanted to find a way to do sequels, right? And to me, you just recast it. Indiana Jones is a very recastable character with the right actor. Okay.
I like Henry Cavill, but I like Henry
Well,
Cavill for everything because Henry Cavill's good at everything.
I thought Chris Pratt would have been a pretty good Indiana Jones.
Chris Pratt could be good.
You know, especially remember Indiana Jones is an homage to those pulp novels, the 30s and all that sort of stuff. They could have just made Indiana Jones films set in the 30s and early 40s for decades with just pulling out sort of pulp adventures for this character without what
That's the thing is like those pulp adventures are the very things that everything in Marvel and DC should be doing right now.
yeah.
There should be movies about like Sandman versus Peter Parker or the Spider-Man. Like that's what they should be doing. Like have 3 or 4 intertwining stories and tell like his relationships with people around him stopping the bad guys, or maybe a league of supervillains shows up and he's got to deal with them in some shape or form. That's what they need. Instead, they're doing these crazy over the top things that just get
Well,
way out of hand.
that's Kevin Feige for you, you know. So
Kevin
yeah,
Feige.
yeah, Feige, yeah. But anyway, back to the point we're saying is, you know, the Star Wars, especially the second and third Disney trilogy, they would not only were they woke and more woke, right? But they were basically extremely badly written. You know, you could objectively watch things and say, like, wait a minute, why didn't the Empire just blow that ship up there? And why did they wait 2 hours or whatever? You know,
Why do they have fuel now?
yeah, fuel. I mean,
They have fuel now? They have fuel now.
yeah.
Double pun that one.
Or even I'll give you an example from I don't know if you're watching the Monarch TV show. Um, okay,
I
so
don't watch much TV anymore. I
well,
don't have time.
if I said the legendary MonsterVerse, you know what I'm talking about, right? The Godzilla King Kong movies.
Oh, I know Godzilla movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's called the MonsterVerse. The
Oh,
legendary
MonsterVerse. I think it said Monarch.
Well, Monarch is something in the MonsterVerse, but the TV show is
Oh,
called there's a
yeah.
TV show called Monarch Legacy of Monsters, which is about it takes place right after the first Godzilla 2014, and it's supposed to be how Monarch lead into 2019, Godzilla 2019, with exploring how Monarch works and all that. Interesting concept for a TV show, right? So in the middle of episode one, okay, I'm saving you the time of having to watch my 10-minute review of it. Okay. In the
Thank
middle
you.
of episode one, okay, so the premise is there's this mysterious character who apparently died. So his daughter in America, he's a Japanese American, gets the keys to his Japanese apartment because this guy travels the world, right? She doesn't know why. He works for Monarch, that's why. Um, and he goes to his apartment in Japan, thinking he's got to clean it out and pack all his stuff up, and he finds the guy's other wife and kid there.
Huh.
So in the middle of this thing, which was supposed to be about kaiju and Monarch, we spent 15 minutes going over the fact that dude's a polygamist. And
Double agent.
I kept looking at the screen going, no one cares. No one cares about your agenda. No one cares about your polygamy, like anti, like pro women polygamy. No one cares. No one cares. Why is it in this film? No one cares. Just make it that the guy had a first wife that he divorced in Japan that no one knew about. That's all you had to do. And so his son and then he could have edited 15 minutes out of the show. Like
They want drama.
you could edit 15 minutes out of that first episode full of bad writing. Not just atrocious. There's a thing when I learned to dungeon master years and years ago. Someone told me, Matt, the number one thing you never want to do is and said, think of it this way: if you put something in a story, right, and then afterwards you can just remove those pages from the story and nothing changes, it shouldn't have been there to begin with. Okay, so
Yeah. Well, if it's in there, it has to be tied into the story in some shape or form to drag it forward. Like in Wheel of Time, Rand gets his little polygamy swing, but it's like purposeful. Each of those girls plays a role in the story for his particular story as
Yeah.
well as their own stories, and each of their footsteps makes an impact on the overall story. So like it's all tied in. But a guy be like, I lived here. Now, if you find out that his other wife's kid is some miracle worker with Technician Lab or something, and they need to use him eventually to, sucker in Godzilla or one of the other monsters, then that makes sense to some extent. But again, it doesn't have to be polygamy. It could have been prior marriage. It could have been
They could have
whatever.
literally. You can re-edit that first episode to edit out the entire polygamy like subplot because it doesn't affect anything other because what they need is for the two characters to be half siblings who didn't know about it. It's all they needed for the story to work the way it did, you know. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's an example of horrible writing, just horrible writing with some
Now,
woke agenda. But horrible.
I was gonna say, would you consider that woke as well because of the polygamy aspect, or would you consider it just bad writing
I
and there's
think
no actual woke in it?
I think it's a bad writer who comes from that woke point of view and says, "I want to get this polygamy thing in there as part of my culture, my woke culture." Right. So
you think it's part of both?
I think, like I said, I think there's elements of both, but this is a bad writer, right? Who's in that culture of wokeness, who said, I'm gonna put this into the story, not understanding because he's a bad writer that if you can edit it out of the story at the end, it shouldn't be there to begin with, right?
I mean, that's legit to me.
Yeah. Now, he could not have been woke at all, but like, and still put a bad chunk of story in. He'd happen to put a woke bad chunk of story in, you know.
Well, it's like when you get a really well received first film for like Pixar or something else, and then later on they release a part two, and most of the time you never find out about it until years later because it didn't do very good at all. And
I'll give you a
you're
great
like,
example: the Matrix movies.
well, I mean, from what I understand, the second one was everyone's favorite, even though the first one's obviously a classic.
I no.
But
See, the problem with
everybody
the
hated
second
the
movie
third one.
that there's one scene in the second movie which explains the whole trilogy, but the stupid Wachowski siblings, because they're not even brothers anymore, they're not sisters or whatever. You know, the scene that explains
Biology!
the scene that explains the whole trilogy, they just sort of like have it and don't expound upon it. And it's when he's talking to the architect. You remember he's talking to the architect, and the architect goes, you're Neo 6.2, basically, I'm paraphrasing. And when I first made the Matrix, your mind couldn't comprehend it. You kept burning it to the. I'm paraphrasing, right? So, and then we saw that Neo could affect the machines you got to watch in real life, and then I understood. This is the metaphor in the Matrix: is the architect is God. Reality is a program he created. The machines in real life are still in the Matrix. You know what I mean? So the whole thing is the Matrix. And the reason Neo could affect the machines is because they're part of the Matrix, but Neo has the ability to operate outside of the particular program that they call the Matrix in the movies.
Yeah.
So, what the architect is trying to do is use him to isolate from a computer. Maybe because I was into computers and whatever, but he was trying to use Neo to isolate a particular recursive error in the program, right? Uh, and Neo's program would be like a data catch it in the logs. Then the architect could take those logs once Neo comes back to the source, goes back to God, Jesus returns to heaven. You know, that's the metaphor they were going for. Okay,
Let's read this.
and then you can say, okay, now I can reset reality again with this particular error. And remember, he says the first people who spawn up, the architect deliberately puts them in Zion. Do you remember that? He says that at one point.
It's been a hot minute, dude. I've watched that like a decade or two
my
ago.
point I'm getting is the second and third films, the writing was bad. And the point
I saw the third, and I don't remember a thing from it.
Both films had great, like there were some great fights in the third, but that's about it. It was the
I remember the second and the first the most. I don't remember anything about the third, and I never saw the fourth.
So, well, the fourth is garbage.
That's
I
why
know
never saw it.
what they tried to do was go back to that original message where the whole thing is the Matrix, but they messed it up badly. Again, bad writing. They're trying to tell a story that that's above their ability to tell. You know.
Fair enough.
In any case, uh, so the point is that's just a case where bad writing took over the franchise, despite all the money. Like they had great fights, the acting was pretty top notch. You know, it was well presented, but the underlying story they just failed to come across. So I could rewatch the first Matrix film and enjoy it every couple of years. The second one, I think I've watched it 2 times since then and enjoyed it. The third one, I will fast forward through the fights. That's about it. You know, it's like the Star Wars prequel trilogy. I can rewatch the second one every 10 years or so. The Clone Wars. Um, the first one, I skip to the fights, and the third one, I skip to the fights.
Yeah, the fights in the third one are the best in the series, from what I understand from
Yeah,
everybody's opinions
and
overall.
I mainly
I
mean
liked it.
Yoda versus Palpatine because I'm not a big fan of some of the
You,
weird.
you didn't like Yoda and or not Yoda, Anakin and Obi-Wan, like the legendary Duel of Fates.
There were parts of it that were okay, but there were parts of it that were like so badly choreographed. Like, couldn't they pay Ray Parks to come back and choreograph that one? Just bring him back for one, because he choreographed the fights in the first film. He was the fight choreographer for the whole film.
Yeah,
You know, and like Dooku versus Yoda in the second movie, like that whole sequence. First Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Dooku, and then Dooku versus Yoda. That's as close to the best fight in the whole sequence you'll get. That whole um philosophy at opposed the master and the student, and um you know and that's a whole journey. Like Dooku, like Yoda was Dooku's mentor. Dooku was Qui-Gon's mentor. Qui-Gon was Obi-Wan's mentor. Obi-Wan was Anakin's mentor. So it's all come together in that one scene. And the counter philosophies of, when they're equal in the force, that's why you have the lightsaber. It comes down to the lightsaber, you know, which was the second. You go back to episodes 4, 5, and 6, when they weren't equal in skill in the force. Vader was ragdolling Luke in Empire. Remember all that? But then by the time we get to the third movie, Vader couldn't do that to Luke anymore. So it came down to the lightsaber and the battle of wits, you know. And then when
well, I'd say it's almost even more to the battle of emotional power.
well,
Like,
the battle of wits. I
well,
mean the mental
I
battle,
mean,
you know.
yeah, there's the wits, but I meant like the emotions of Vader getting basically beaten by Luke, and then Luke throwing down his lightsaber, saying, "I'm not going to kill my father," and he's just like, "Wow, am I just a bad dad?" Like
Well,
he's coming to the conclusions, and
that's
then
supposed to be a
Palpatine's like, "Kill
throwback.
him," and I'm just like, "Well, he's having a bad day." So,
There's a reason in episode 2 that they did the Anakin and Dooku scene where Palpatine basically turns Anakin right there and has him execute Dooku. Remember that? Um,
not three.
episode 2. No, it was episode 3. Sorry, episode 3. Right.
I was like,
Episode 3.
"That's not three. I
Yeah.
don't remember that for three."
No, episode 2. Sorry, episode 3. There's a reason Lucas had that film scene the way he did. Because you're supposed to have Anakin thinking about that years later when Luke didn't make the same decision he did. And Palpatine did the same thing. He goaded Anakin on in episode 6, right? And Anakin fell, but in episode 3 rather, in episode 6, Palpatine's goading Luke on, but Luke didn't fall, and that redeemed Vader, brought Anakin back out of the Vader persona, and set the whole chain of events off. So it's very that Lucas. If Lucas had only not listened to Steven Spielberg for those first 3 films, they would have been much better movies. You know.
I mean, that's fair enough. Um, now for it's kind of hard to be just like name a bad film because there's so many to choose from, but I'm an objectivist, so I believe there's actual objective issues in art and whatnot. I think there's things that objectively make art better and things that objectively make art worse.
Well, are you
Um,
an actual Randian objectivist, or you just mean
a
you're
what?
objective? Ayn Rand, the objective is a type of philosophy.
Well, I'm not using it in necessarily a philosophical perspective in this instance. I'm using it. I mean, I probably am, but I'm more putting it into the perspective of like there's good cinematography the cinematography.
No, I'm just asking to be clear because I want to make sure you're not actually an actual objectivist. That's a
You don't want me to
philosophical
be? Is
school.
that what you're saying?
No, because how I approach the discussion would affect how I approach the discussion.
I don't take that. I would say I'm a principled person. I would say I'm consistent. I'm not wishy-washy. I'm not going to pick inside and then
Well,
join the other
what
side,
I'm
whatever
getting
I
at
feel
is,
like.
if you were an actual objectivist, I would bring up certain points when we talk about things. But since you're not,
Well,
you're just being objective.
I would say I'm definitely an objectivist in terms of I'm objective about things. Like I look at things as an objective perspective, but I don't make up things for my perspective. Like philosophy is a little interesting in this area because I enjoy philosophy a lot, which I mean you and the guys know. But in this when I use it in reference to art, I'm using it in perspective of there's the cinematography is either well shot or it's not, or like it might have been like well shot in certain instances and but it's not in other instances. But I'll point out the differences and say this was good, this was bad. Fight choreography, this was good, this is bad. Objectively, from a perspective of
Yeah.
comparative to what you could find
Well,
in the
you're
industry.
being objective. Like I
Yes,
said, I'm not picking points. I'm just saying, for my own clarity, I want to make sure you weren't arguing from Ayn Rand's philosophy point of view. You're just being
I'm
objective.
not using a philosophical stance for
Yeah.
this. No, I'm
Okay.
using a purely like
Yeah.
logic based. Um, there were things like the Last Jedi. The cinematography was good, but there were the choreography for the fight scene, like the throne room scene, was atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
At the first time I watched it, didn't pick up on it. The second time I watched it, I noticed. Thank you, Mahler, for that one. But then you got little things, parts about characters, their storylines, how they interact with other characters. They're objectively not good because they're objectively doing as little as possible with them that would drive the plot naturally, and then they're forcing in a whole bunch of other plot holes. Like when they get to needing the holocron or whatever it was that was in uh
The Sith
Kylo.
holocron or whatever it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the thing that like leads them to Exegol and all that jazz. Like they get to all these like this plot device, this supplies, and they pull out the dagger, the little dildo dagger, and
The
then they
Sith
have to be in
there.
the
Yeah.
exact same spot on the exact same part of the planet to look at the exact side that they need to see exactly at the right time of the day when they actually see that. Like everything, like the freaking planets all lined up like in a row, and the freaking Death Star could have just gone pew, blown through one, pew, blown through the next
Mm-hmm.
one, and just killed every single planet because it had to line up perfectly. It's like that's bad writing,
Yep.
downright bad writing. There's no way around it that I can see. Now people always come out, I liked it. I'm like, I don't mind if you liked it. It doesn't mean it's good. It just means you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You can enjoy crap. Like my dad likes pickles. I think they're disgusting. He can like them. I still think they're bad, but whatever. Like,
I've watched a ton of bad movies that I enjoy to this
yeah,
day.
horror films are notorious for being bad,
Yeah.
but people like them because they want to be scared or fearful or whatever term you want to use.
Well, sometimes
That's
it's
the
fun to
feeling they
watch a
want.
bad movie if you have like really funny
Yeah,
funny memories of it or
Sharknado.
whatever. Yeah.
Sharknado is a bad film, but
Yeah.
people like it, and they keep making them because they're funny. People, the what was it? Not Scream, but Scary Movie. I think it's a Scary Movie series. Like
Well,
they're horribly made, but
but
they're funny, and that's why people watch them.
my only problem with scary movie, why I never get into it, is I'm not, I want when I watch a bad movie, like you know who Uwe is.
I say I
He's
do.
a German director who made a lot of really bad movies, especially based on video games.
Uh,
He's not so big anymore because he's like 75 or whatever. But
or
if
because
you
he
go
made
back and
bad
watch,
movies.
yeah, he's made a lot of bad movies. Like there's a video game franchise called Alone in the Dark, which is a pretty good franchise.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, it's a little before your time, but it's a really cool video game from like the 1990s
I'm
or
not that
2000s or
young.
whatever. You know, so he made the Alone in the Dark movie, which was a bad movie, like objectively bad, but enjoyable. Excuse me. You gave me guess. It's like well, you're
I
burp.
do.
It's like you know.
Well, like, did you ever see the movie Rubber? I figured you have if you're a horror fan.
Don't
It's
remember it
about
offhand.
it's about a tire that kills people. You might at least have seen the trailer or whatever.
I probably
It's
seen the
literally
trailer.
it's literally just a tire that like rolls and bounces around and kills people. Like it's the dumbest premise
Yeah,
ever.
there's a
But
lot of things like that.
they
Like
have
when I
one that
was a kid,
well,
there was
I found these when I was like playing Xbox 360 back in the day when Xbox 360 was like first out, and they had like a TV section. They
yeah,
had rubber on there, and they also had the case of the killer condom, and it
that
was
one.
like
Yeah,
literally, it's just like it's a dumb premise. It's silly. It's stupid. It's obviously not meant to be a legitimate thing. But maybe if you watch them, you like them. I never watched either of them. I just thought the premises of them were absolutely hilarious. I horror movies put me to sleep. I don't find them scary because I find them obviously like I could basically tell you the plot like I wrote it. Like it's so obvious in every instance, and it drives me nuts. It bothers me. Like I lean over and be like, yeah, and then Spider-Man's gonna do this, and then guess what? Spider-Man does that because the writers are terrible. They can't surprise anybody, and it's that kind of a thing where like you can tell a bad story because of all of its processes and like how it's going together. You can see the reactions between characters. Oh, this is going to happen because these two met. This thing's going to happen. This bad guy notices these two
that's
met.
true.
They're going to do this. Like it's pretty much formulaic. They use the same formula over and over again. They don't ever try anything groundbreaking or innovative.
Um,
They don't try to reinvent the wheel.
Honestly, since I turned 15 or so, there's been less than 10 movies I've ever seen or TV show episodes where I couldn't predict the plot.
Yeah. But then you
In
have ones
fact,
like
I'll
you
go
have
even
like
further.
One Piece.
In
One Piece, I never like I already know the plot and everything, and I'm watching the live action with my wife, and I'm enjoying it. Even though
there's
there's things that I'm looking at, I'm like that didn't happen in the anime, so it's probably from the
well,
manga, and back and forth, back and forth. But it's still entertaining. It still fits in the universe, no matter what. It's that kind of thing. Sorry, go ahead.
there's a movie that's almost like the epitome of this. Like it's a great movie. It's called The Usual Suspects. If you've never seen it's a Kevin Spacey movie.
Sounds
Um,
familiar.
well,
I
I
don't
will
think I've
never
seen it.
spoil the movie because you can't spoil. It's a movie you can only watch once. You can watch it again to enjoy it, but what happens in the film,
Most
like,
movies are watched only once for me.
well, no, but like there's certain films that like if you spoil them, you ruin them, type of thing. Fans of this movie will never tell. Good legitimate fans will never tell you very many of the plot details of this film. Okay.
Yeah.
However, what I will say is, due to my ability to predict what's happening in movies, I predicted the outcome. I saw I saw something in the movie that told me what the outcome was. I still enjoyed it because I enjoyed the journey that the writer and director took me on to get there and the actors. But like, but not everyone like with fans who've seen it. I'll say now, if you think about it, that one particular thing would have told you that one particular thing you need to know, and like, oh, you're right. Why didn't I see that? But I've read so many books, I've seen so many stuff that there's not a lot that's going to strike you. It's very rare for something even that's designed to sort of be a mystery thriller or whatever to really surprise me anymore. Um,
Well, even like I
that's why we
recently
talked about The Conjuring earlier, right? I don't know if we talked about it on the stream before. Why The Conjuring pleasantly
yeah
surprised me was
well,
with
it's all blurred together. I don't remember if
well
that was on the stream or not.
with
What are you
the
talking
idea
about?
of subversion. We're talking about subversion, right? So
I
the reason that I love The Conjuring is because it pleasantly surprised me by subverting my expectations so effectively with these jump scares and lack of them. Hate to spoil it, but it's only way to talk about it. Um, that's like one of the 10 or less films or TV shows with that really, you know, uh did that, and I'm happy when I get to that stuff because there's so many books and movies and TV shows and stories and songs and whatever in my head, like even music. Like if bands I like Nightwish or Metallica or
good
anyone
old
else,
Nightwish.
huh?
Good old Nightwish.
Well, I'm just saying I'm trying. There's other bands I listen to that I'm saying ones you would have heard of. They
I
come
know
out
I'm
with a
not.
new album,
I don't
right?
care about Metallica at all.
Well, I'm just bringing up some bigger ones that you would have heard of. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like they come
I
out with.
typically avoid mainstream.
Yeah. But okay, so they come out with a new album. It might be new music, but I can kind of predict it because I've heard so many of their music before. You know what I mean?
I can predict that Nightwish will have a symphonic metal album again.
but it'll sound like Nightwish songs because Nightwish has
Yeah.
a sound you've heard through 15 albums or whatever. Just like Metallica's album this year, it's a good album. It's the best album in years, but it sounded like older Metallica, which I've heard
The
on
only
7 other
album in
albums.
the years.
You know, so my brain's so filled with predictability that I'm honestly surprised, like when I get to something so shocking or whatever in a film that, like, oh my god, I didn't predict that, and you know, but bad writers can't do that. So
Yeah, I mean, like I was it this week? I think I did it like Monday. Might have been Monday night or Tuesday night. I know because it ruined my sleep schedule. I played because my birthday was 6 days ago. Um,
belated happy birthday.
thank you. And my bestie got me Total War Warhammer 3.
Hmm.
And I love the Total War franchise basically up to Shogun 2, and then it kind of dropped off the deep end. But I have the first two. I didn't really like them that much. It was very restrictive. And this one, I was just like, I'll give it a shot. My buddy likes it, even though he gave it a bad review on Steam. But I was like, I'll give it a shot. And I played the tutorial campaign, and I knew it was coming. But the art style, the story itself, the fact that Richard Armitage is in it,
Yeah,
was like it was enthralling to the point where like I know what's going to happen. Like it doesn't take a genius to figure out what's going to happen, and it wasn't the greatest writing. It wasn't super crazy strong, but it got you to where you needed to go, and the way you went about it was actually not so bad. I wouldn't say it would win any great awards or anything, but it was at least entertaining at the bare minimum.
yeah.
So I was pleasantly surprised that it was entertaining, and I was like, okay, I gotta now play the regular game and see if it's still the same or whatever. And then there was other things that disappointed me like crazy, but I'm not gonna get into that because this is not a Total War Warhammer 3
Yeah.
review. But I the writing wasn't amazing, but it was okay. Like I would be like, yeah, I probably am never gonna play this again, this particular prologue because I've already played it. But I would say it's probably like a 6 out of 10 in terms of like storytelling is probably like 5 or probably a 5 out of 10. It's average mediocre, but entertainment wise, I got like maybe a 7 out of 10 from playing it because like I actually enjoyed it. I thought the art, the voice acting, the visuals, everything as they were putting it together as like a
Yeah.
total piece was good. And like again, not amazing, not like innovative or new or anything, but it was just it did what it was supposed to do: keep you invested, learn the mechanics, and then push you in towards the other
Hmm.
campaigns or into the world. And I'm not super familiar with Warhammer because I've got so many other universes of stuff I
Yeah.
play in, like the BattleTech universe, and I'm still not even crazy. Like I grew up on MechWarrior. I didn't even know it was part of BattleTech for the longest time. Um, but there's other things, but Lord of the Rings has always been my big thing, and then Wheel of Time became my thing later on when I was a little bit older. By a little bit older, I mean in my teens. Um, but um, you can tell good writing. I feel like anybody who reads Wheel of Time gets through the whole thing and like keeps their eyes open and is constantly learning while they're reading. They will take the Wheel of Time and they will make it basically the standard for details and stuff like that. A lot of people who read Tolkien works have the same kind of thing where they'll read Tolkien's work and be like, he puts so much like care into his details, just like Robert Jordan did, that when you read other things, other works, other people who are doing their own stuff, and you look into it and you're like, these details aren't making sense. These details aren't adding up. They're actually collapsing the entirety of this guy's story or whatever. So you can tell bad stuff or trash content, whatever you want to call it, bad, trash, garbage, pick a term, it's all bad. But you can pick those out, and in some situations, like, yeah, it can be trash, but it can be funny, it could be entertaining, it could be engrossing, whatever that case may be, and that's not a problem. If you like the bad stuff, that's fine. The thing that like Wheel of Time fans have a problem with Wheel on Prime, or Lord of the Rings fans or Tolkien fans have a problem with Rings of Power or Rings of Prime, the problem is not that other people could have bad. It's that they should have done it right, and then they could have had everyone like it, as opposed to only people who don't care.
Well, the thing
because
is,
people who don't care are going to keep funding this. It's the people who care will keep funding this.
if you listen to my like Wheel of Prime episode 8 review, I do something entirely different. Like I go over. We talked about this, I think, when we talked about the episode. Like that's when like basically Rafe was going out of his way. This one, like before, I thought Rafe was basically trying to steal Robert Jordan's like nouns and make his own story, right? Um,
Yeah, basically
now
what
I
it is.
think what he was actually doing is trying to deliberately deconstruct Wheel of Time, the novels, to make you think something is wrong with the novels and never read them.
Possible.
Because if you look at every single, this is what I do in my video. I go down the list with the main characters, whether it's well, even with the groups with the White Cloaks and Sean Chan, Rand and Nynaeve and Egwene and all that, and everything they do in those books, like Rand for example, when he gets to High Lord Turok, and instead of fighting him in a fight like in the novel, establish Rand as a badass playmaster. Yep, total deconstruction of Rand's character from then to every other
I
scene.
think that was them trying to recreate what was it, chapter, I want to say it's chapter 10 of Shadow Rising, where he does that against the Trollocs and the Murdral in the Stone of Tyr when they get attacked after Lanfear's visitation. I think that was him trying to recreate that, because I'm pretty sure that move is called Strike of Death, because it's also in the that's up there. It's in the D&D book that Robert Jordan worked with them, and Strike of Death was basically something that hits all of the same type of characters in a certain range, and that's essentially what it was.
You're assuming Dudkins knew what that was.
Well, I mean, if you pay attention to the story, it's pretty obvious because it's extremely detailed.
I think the story was, let's see, what does Rand do?
He wanted a lazy way for this to happen and to not make Yosha, whatever his name is.
His idea was, how can I make Rand look bad? Okay, he just kills everyone with the one power. Boom.
I mean, I don't see that as making him look bad. Just it really de-escalates the scene by a lot.
It makes him look bad because Rand in the books, couldn't use the one power that effectively yet at that point, right?
Yeah, but I'm when I'm hearing like make him look bad, I'm thinking like almost villainous or something like that. And I'm like, no, he would have cut through everybody anyway if that was necessary. But in the books, it was a group versus a group, so they got split up, and then him and Turok went face to face.
More importantly, in the book, this was Rand growing into his own legend,
becoming. Yeah. I'm not saying that he did a good job in all this stuff. I'm saying that I don't see him making Rand look bad by doing this. I just think it was a stupid scene in general. Like, it was just a bad scene, whether or not Rafe wanted him to just everybody or whatever. Like, there's no growth. We never saw him learn this move, which, to be fair, in the books, you never see him know a lot of the moves because he's learning them from his past life rather than other things. So one could argue that he did that. They just didn't show us the scene that he learned that path. Like, there's a lot of things you could argue in favor. I just disliked it because that should have been a highlight of the that should have been the highlight of the season finale. Yeah. Not fighting Balsamon per se, but taking on Turok. Like, that should have been a highlight because you see an actual.
That should have been honestly. That should have been the end of episode 7. That literally should have been like that. That fight should have been the signature fight.
That should have been the signature fight for episode 7, and then there's the fight, which is not necessarily a signature sword fight because I don't remember it. I think didn't Balsamon use like a spear or something?
Well, that one? Did you see my thumbnail for the video yet?
Which one?
for that episode? I'll show you. Thumbnail.
I was gonna say it. I have to look.
I'll post. I'll share it with you. It's fine.
Free advertisement. I gotta let you go here soon anyway. So
yeah. So that is my thumbnail for the video.
I went again, who's there? And because I like how you can't even see the dragon's face. He's just like a.
Well, because that was like
what you're trying to do is make it look like a giant fireball of failure.
Yeah. Yeah. My point is
you've done 262 episodes.
Yeah.
Holy crap, dude. You make me look like an amateur with my.
Well, I do a lot of I'll be quiet for a month or two, and I'll do a burst of 15 episodes in 2 weeks or whatever.
I wish I had your free time.
I wish I had more free time. It's like I said. Anyway, I do gotta kind of get ready for my next thing, which really means resting for an hour. But
so hopefully we kind of I don't know how much we really got touched on it. We did gonna run short on people
Well, no,
and time.
we shared our thoughts on the topic. I think we both expressed.
Well, I
Our
know,
thoughts
but I
fairly
was kind of like, I wanted to kind of finalize it with, um, how do we double check ourselves when we see something that we're like, initial thought is it's woke, and then be like, well, actually, it might not be woke. It could just be bad. And
Okay.
if it's just bad, is it something where I can go out and say it's not woke, but it's still bad? Or do I just say it's just bad? And they're like, well, you just think it's woke because they do the whole woke, and stupid stuff. And I'm just like, I'm getting kind of tired of hearing the word woke, honestly, but I'm also tired of the woke content at the same time. But I also consider woke content to be something where they're intentionally putting in content where it's not needed, like the Gwenpool. Like, that's not necessary at all for Gwenpool's story. It's not helpful to Gwen's story or Gwenpool's story, and it's the same in everything. Whether it be the Miles Morales game that they came out with, where you're
Yeah.
a black chick writing Black Lives Matter or whatever on a wall with graffiti or something, or being Mary Jane as the bad guy slash good guy. And I don't know if you've ever heard about that fight and whatever between Mary Jane and Peter Parker, where she's like blaming him for like, you always wanted to be number one, and he's like, I never knew that. And they use the same voice of the guy who plays Sasuke in Naruto, and it pisses me off that they use him that way. But it's just like the whole thing is just basically piss all over Peter Parker, make Miles Morales look amazing, and it's just there's so many side quests that are not Spider-Man or Miles Morales. And then even when you get to play, it's Miles Morales, and he's practically like God mode. He's like Captain Marvel in a Spider universe, which makes no sense whatsoever because he doesn't just have Spider-Man powers. He has Spider-Man plus everything
Yeah.
else, and stupid. But my point is that I wanted to kind of finalize the concept for people.
I
How do you
don't think.
identify woke versus bad? And we can define woke, we can define the intersectionality, we can define, the pandering, we can find all that stuff. And then you also have, but what if it has stuff that seems like it's woke, but it's just poorly done?
Well, I would
What's a
say
big,
very.
what's a good
I
measurement for
think,
that?
from my point of view, what I focus on is if the content is telling you, one, that you're wrong for liking something, and two, that you're wrong for not liking something, and three, that you're wrong for thinking the way you do. That's woke, the Marxist wokeism, and you know, it's got to
I
meet
can
all
see
three of those criteria. It's all three of them. Otherwise, like you said, there's a trap you could fall into.
Yeah, because I think too often the the people who are pushing ideologies and agendas into comics, movies, books, whatever it might be, I think they too often are trying to entrap us into using the woke thing so that they can discredit us for calling everything woke. And I'm like, I don't want everything to be woke. I don't even want it to be identified as woke. I just want good content. But if you're going to make it bad and then cover it up by putting a woke thing on it, I can only assume it's woke. Like,
Yeah.
was She-Hulk woke, or was it just bad with cringy?
Well, what
And
She-Hulk
you
is
could argue
canceled.
both because it depends. What?
What She-Hulk is canceled. That's what it is.
Well, I thought they had a second season
No,
got
they just
greenlit.
canceled it. I saw something
Oh,
yesterday.
they did?
Yeah. So
Oh, well.
anyway,
Anyway,
yep.
that was kind of the idea. So, you got something coming up, and that's what, tomorrow, today,
Well,
right now.
obviously it won't be. Well, at the
You won't see it
time
on
we're
this video.
recording this, at the
If
time
this
we're
is a
recording
live
this,
stream,
yeah,
I would do this, but
yeah, on Roman of the Empire's channel, about an hour, I'll be on talking about a bunch of different fandom topics.
is it a live stream
It's a
then?
live stream.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, anybody who's watching this video, if you are
By
watching
the way,
this in
Roman
the
is
future,
building, like, if we were talking before, Roman is building a sort of group collaboration-y thing with his channel. So he's a good point.
I'm not familiar with his work. You'll have to DM me something of his, then I'll check it out.
I'll link the live stream tonight, so if you have time to listen to some of it,
We'll see.
yeah,
Wife date and all that.
a lot of
But
Italian. We have a high percentage of Italians on the show.
I'm okay with that. Although I
Yeah,
am Sicilian, so that's
and then
technically not
and
Italian.
then, and then on Fridays, I have my Friday Fandemonium at 3 o'clock in Eastern Standard Time. There we go.
There you go. So if you guys catch this at a later date, where it's obviously Thursday's past, or maybe even Friday's past, you can go back and watch that stuff. Check out the stuff. I'll try to drop links in the description if he sends me any of them. And, as always, you'll have his stuff in the bio. or not bio. Is it yeah, I guess it's considered a bio or whatever they call it these days. I'm too old for this. Um, but check that out on whatever time period, and then check out any future stuff. And if he's doing it every Thursday night and every Friday, you know where to find him and catch him. So thank you, good sir. I look forward to talking to you again, and hopefully the other guys will be more available / feeling better, so they can
maybe
come back.
Sage will put out that hair fire he has going on.
Yeah, and they bet you guys better comment. You know who you are.
Yeah.
You better comment. But yeah, thanks, Matt, and everybody else. Thank you for coming and spending time with us. And remember, my friends, walk in the light.